I'm your host Kieran, thank you for joining. Have you ever wanted to own a haunted house? This is something that has become true for one paranormal investigator in Minnesota, and I have the pleasure to be joined by Shelley, who's going to be telling us a little bit about the house and about her love for the paranormal. Jill, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks, Kieran. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Excellent, thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about the house, maybe about the history and about your love for the paranormal, how you got started in it?
Well, I've always been fascinated about the paranormal since I was a little kid. Always got to tell the ghost stories, and get scared. And so I kind of watched all the movies and read books. And I had an experience when I was a child at my grandmother's house where I actually heard this footsteps come out of the bedroom, and then it was stopped at my doorway that I was sleeping at, and you could just feel it staring at you, and it was really intense, very, very intense. And as a young child, of course, I'm scared and I'm not going to turn around and look. So then I kind of heard it sigh and then turn around and walk away. So then I quick ran and I turned the light on and then dove back under with the covers, and that's where I was until morning. So then I spoke to my grandma about it, who was very religious, and she just said, "Oh, that's just a ghost and he's not going to hurt you." So here I thought, well, gosh, if grandma's not concerned, I'm not going to be concerned. So then that just kind of really started me on this whole path of, oh, let's learn more about ghosts now. So just kind of kept reading and studying, and then with the advent of, the ghost shows and everything came out, that's, I think, when more people became more aware of doing investigating.
Certainly, I do think it's played a massive part in building up the paranormal community. Certainly has got a lot more people interested in it.
Right. And we know it goes back, like the Warrens back in the 70s, but it wasn't popular, so nobody even really heard of anything. I had even not back in the 80s even really heard of people investigating. So like I said, with the advent of TV, so then I just, met a group of people who were real into the same interest that I was, and we kind of formed a group called St. Croix Paranormal, and that was in 2010. And with our group, we ended up traveling all over the United States to really well-known haunted locations to do investigations. So it's been really a fun, exciting last 10 years with this group.
So what inspired you to buy the house then? Because obviously with it being a haunted house, it's something that every paranormal group wants to have. It's like a haunted HQ, as it were. So what inspired you to actually want to buy the house then?
Well, like you said, going around traveling, that kind of was like, hey, I want to do this too. But, can't just find things that say, hey, haunted house for sale. So yeah, this was a year I was financially able to fulfill that dream, and I just started looking on the the MLS listings. I would do searches for old house, in my price range and etc. And this one I was just really, really drawn to, and my realtor that I was working with knew what I was looking for, so I got to go over and do a mini investigation at the house before I purchased it, because I was like, I can't just go off it looks haunted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So within, I think it was 8 minutes, one of my REM pods went off in one of the rooms, and it continues to go off in that room now that I've purchased it. And so I ran a spirit box, and we got a couple of names. And then what I thought was really interesting, right when we started, probably within 3 or 4 minutes of running the spirit box, you had a woman's voice came over clear that said, "Who are you?"
Oh, really?
So it's she's kind of okay, this has never happened before. So, we kind of had some experiences, and I thought, well, let's just ask the owners. They had some minimal experiences, but they kind of blew everything off. But it was enough to, some of the stuff they were saying didn't really validate, them making it up. Yeah. And, they actually did see a man in the living room at one point. So that to me is okay, well, they just blew it off. They just saw the guy one time. So
I think it's quite frightening. Certainly when you see something in your own home, or certainly a home that you're familiar with, it's because it's unfamiliar, someone that you don't recognize in your house. That's quite terrifying in itself.
Right. So they kind of blew off some of the experiences that happened. And I have, talked to one of the gals who grew up there, and she told me a few more things that she saw as she was growing up, but she always said, well, I just thought it was this. As a kid, I just thought I saw that, So they had some experiences, and then there's a real well psychic that I work with sometimes, and she could see through the photos that there were about 6 spirits there, that there were women, children, and a man. And so based on that, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a leap of faith here, and I'm going to buy this house.
I mean, you can't go wrong if it's got that much going on with it.
Yeah. And like I said, I was so drawn to it. Even when I did my investigation, I was like, gosh, I just love this house, Yeah. And I couldn't stop thinking about it as well. But, so we ended up purchasing it and trying to find out a little bit of history on it. When we went to the Historical Society, we didn't have our abstract or deed at the time. So we're just kind of at that point able to get history of the town. But we do know that the house was built in 1901, but the deed now goes back to 1884 to when the land was owned by the Minneapolis and St. Louis Railroad.
Oh, wow.
And the tracks pretty much are like right, not very far. Like when the train goes through, you can see it through the trees.
Oh, so the track is still used then, is it?
It is still in use, yes. So
wow.
The railroad draws a lot of energy. My house is located on the edge of town. So when we look at the pictures from like the 1900s, it was a really big booming town. So a lot of the founders of the town have owned the land, and right. some of the people who are well known in the town lived in that house. So one of them owned the hardware store, and he was also the justice of the peace of the town. He lived there for almost 28 years and died in the house.
Wow, it was passed through a lot of hands then.
It kind of did at first, and then the last ones had it for about 20 years. Then it was a couple years here and there, and then somebody had it for 10 years, and then so it was kind of sporadic. But we do know of 3 confirmed deaths in the house. Again, nothing brutal or anything like that. But we feel like a lot of the names that we get have not been matching anything on the deed. So I'm having a lot of feelings that this is something beyond that.
So it could be associated with the land, possibly. Maybe something to do with the railroad or something.
Yeah, with the railroad. We also had across the street from us now is a house, but that used to be a livery stable across the street. So we were like I said, on the edge of town, so who knows? It was all the Wild West days, how many people got shot, died. We're very close to the Sioux Dakota reservation line.
Wow.
And I do know that I think it was the 17 or 1800s. It was so cold that a lot of the Native Americans froze to death. So there's just been a lot of death in that area.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like we all know that the times back then in the Wild West, it was not a nice time to live with everything that was going on. You had disease and everything as well, but to have harsh winters as well couldn't have been easy.
Right. So there's just so much history that we don't know about yet. Just kind of divulging into that aspect, but I do know with a lot of the things that people are reporting back, as well as what I've investigated, we are getting a lot of children activity, and they're getting it seems like it's just one man every time we get an EVP or something on the spirit box. It always seems to be the same voice. And then we definitely get this woman who's got a really raspy voice, she smoked a lot of cigarettes in her life, so she's kind of ornery.
Right, okay. So when you say a lot of people get experiences, do you open the house to other investigators, or is it public events that come in, or?
Yeah, that's what we do primarily, is offer overnight private paranormal investigations for different paranormal groups to come in. Eventually we'll be doing some more events. We do have one coming up actually on April 25th. We have Ghost Hunter University with a psychic, Chris Moon. So if people are interested in that, there's information on our Facebook page, or Eventbrite has that. ticket information. So we're planning on doing more of some more public events and trying to give back to the community and things like that too. We just opened it. Just opened.
Oh, really? Okay. So are you living in the house then, or is the house occupied?
No. I don't live there, and we kind of try to keep it back into the style that it was in the 1900s. So we pretty much have all Victorian period furniture in there. Since we've gotten it, we painted one room. We're working on a library right now, so we have to do a little bit more painting, but we just got a bookshelf this weekend for all the books we got from the 1900s. So we're just kind of getting it back to where it's going. It's it's going to take some time, but yeah, I'd like to see it restored back. If I can get some pictures of how the inside was back in the day, there's people in town I'm hoping I can get a hold of that might have something like that, so I can restore it back to that. I think it'd look really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of houses, certainly over in the UK, and I'm sure in America as well, that when they find a house that's empty, they want to restore it back to the way they are. They try and find the antiques from the time and see if they can try and get the best representation of it. Is that something that you want to try and do as well then?
Yeah, that's what we're working on. Like I said, we just we have the Victorian couches, the old chairs. I think the only thing modern in there in the kitchen is the refrigerator, the microwave, and then I have a small TV down there for myself. Much because when I'm there, I'm not always investigating. I'm actually doing a lot more work than I thought it was. I didn't count on like, oh yeah, you got to mow the lawn, and if that's broken, you have to fix that.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of work maintaining the old building.
Yeah. So I do a lot of the work, but when I'm working and stuff too, I will have a voice recorder on me, and I like to just sit and talk to the spirits, like they're there, like you and I are having a conversation right now. So I'll ask them, hey, how was your week? How was the people last week? I heard they, if they share something with me, I'll say it, like, you touched their REM pod. That was pretty exciting.
I think that's really important. Certainly if you're going to be spending a lot of time in the house and you want to interact with the spirits anyway, I think actually having a general conversation with them is really nice as well. It makes you feel at ease as well, because you'd be less frightened to be in the house on your own, knowing that you can have a conversation with them. Yeah,
and I think they like it too, because it's a respectful. I'm not constantly, and I know how it is, when you're investigating, a lot of them, you're getting the same question. How did you die? Why are you here? So it's probably a little bit of a breath of fresh air for me to just come in and I'm just yammering on about whatever and asking questions, about them, how was your week?
Yeah. What about the town? Does it embrace the fact it's got a haunted house in it, or is it kind of shun the house away, or?
It's kind of a 50-50, some believe, some don't believe, I never try to persuade anybody who doesn't. I just try to explain what we do so they can understand, because I suppose some people are like, oh, what are they doing in there? I think some people don't really understand what we're doing. And so I just try to make everybody comfortable. So it's a really small town too. There's only like 197 people in the town. Everybody knows everybody. They do know what we do. And all the paranormal people who have come to town have had nothing but positive things to say about the people in the town, because they do embrace them, Do
you think that's something that you'd want to try and get more of, and get the town involved more with it when it's all up and running?
Yeah, I think so. It'd be nice to do some public things with the town too, so they can become more comfortable with everything as well.
Yeah, I think that's important. In terms of like activity, you've mentioned that you've caught a couple of voices, and you think there could be some children and women in there. What sort of things are people capturing? Is there anything that's really stumped you and made you really question things?
I wouldn't say really question it. We do get quite a bit of EVPs, a lot of equipment interaction. The two things recently that were just sent to me, as somebody had caught, well, it was interesting because before that, like 2 other people said to me, we saw shadows running around in the kitchen. And I've never captured anything in the kitchen, but one group that was in there And there you can see our video on their video on our Facebook page. They actually captured two shadows running through the kitchen, and they look like people, and they're going really fast. And so they slow them down, and you can see one's a little bit taller than the other one. The other one looks like maybe 10 years old, if you were thinking of size-wise. And I have sat there and thought about it. I'm like, okay, I know, like a lot of people would say, oh, it could be headlights. And that's what my husband said. But then, because we know how the house is set up, I'm like, it's impossible for the headlights to shine into the kitchen. It can't be done. So then he's kind of like, oh, well, then I guess it's for sure something. And then they had also gotten, if you're familiar with the SLS cameras. Okay, so yeah, we had somebody, and I thought it was the coolest. It was the same team that night she was just standing by the piano bench, which has been known to play on its own. And then all of a sudden, like a little person showed up on the SLS camera standing next to her, like perfect person figure, but little, not much taller than the piano bench. They were really talking to it for a little while, a little bit. And all of a sudden, then it shows up in the chair, which is my favorite chair now. But then you see it sitting in the chair, like a stick figure sitting. At the same time, they also had a K2 meter and a REM pod in that chair that continuously went off while the stick figure was there. And they'd ask it to wave. Hey, can you wave at us? And it would wave. So I thought that was a really cool thing to see, because it's like, I know those kids are there. I've heard them. I feel them grab at my shirt and my pants, but I've never been able to see one. So to see that was a really cool validation for me.
So do you join the paranormal groups that go in there, or do you just let them do their own thing?
Oh, nope, they're in there all by themselves doing their own thing. We let people come in at 3 p.m, and they can stay till noon the next day. So for those that are traveling, because I think, what kind of helps a little bit with being an investigator, I've been to places, and there's certain things that it's like, well, if this was my place, this is what I would change. So for me, time was a big thing. And I figured, well, it's not like I have day tours coming in, or I don't live here. So give them as much time as possible, to set up and enough time to get some sleep, because people have to drive. So
yeah, that's the unfortunate thing of afterwards.
Yeah, so I've kind of did that, and it seems to work well for everyone. They seem to enjoy that, and I have a lot of people tell me that early in the morning, because a lot of people will go to sleep at like 6 a.m, catch a couple hours of sleep before heading home, and usually they said somebody's always pulling on their blankets, by their feet. So they get that early in the morning. And I know the first night one of my teammates went down there with me and spent the night. And this was like right when we opened, so I didn't really have furniture or anything. So we had air mattresses that we had blown up. And in the middle of the night, she woke up because she felt something crawling into bed with her. Because she thought it was me, like I got scared or something. And she goes, and there you were, still sleeping away.
That's quite creepy.
But she said it felt like the size of a small child, like it tried to snuggle up in bed with her. Yeah, and but you know what? She's experienced stuff all her life. Like she's able to see spirits, not all the time, but she has, and she can sometimes. So it doesn't bother her, because I've had her on film when we're at places, and she'll be sleeping like in a dead sleep. You can hear her snoring. The REM pod next to her will go off. She'll pop her head up and go, "Hey, how's it going?" And then she'll just go right back to sleep.
That's really cool. So you mentioned that you've been investigating for about 10 years. Obviously, America's got some incredible locations, which I know I would love to knock off the bucket list. Where would you say is the best place that you've investigated?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I mean, we've obviously done Waverly Hills. Everybody wants to go there. That was just super cool and amazing to be there. But I think my favorite place to be, I don't know if you've heard of Edinburgh Manor in Iowa.
I have heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, I've been there like 3 or 4 times. It is just hands down like my favorite place to go, just because you always get something, and we've had everything from doors slamming to being touched. We get Class A EVPs. It's usually of grumpy patients because it used to be like an insane asylum, and then it was a drug rehab, and it has gone through so many different things, a nursing home. So you get a lot of it sounds like a lot of older crabby men. My favorite one is, I know they have a child there, or more than one, I'm sure, but there's been a little girl known for sure. And she was playing with us a lot that night. And just before we went to bed and we were leaving, I said, okay, good night. And she said, plain as day, I'm going to miss you. And it's like, ever I keep coming back, and I never get to connect with her again. I don't know if somebody sent her, she moved on, I don't know. But I still just love that place because it's big enough, but yet it's small enough to not where it's too overwhelming. But it's just so much fun, that one.
Excellent. So when you said you travel around the US, obviously with your group, how far do you go? Do you go all over, or do you have a certain area that you like to cover?
Well, we've gone as far as Ohio. I think has been our farthest drive, and we've been there a couple times, doing a couple places out there, like the Gill House and Prospect Place. We've been to Indiana. We do a lot of stuff in Indiana, a lot of stuff in Iowa, because there's a lot of there. Been to Kansas and Missouri and Illinois. That's kind of our main stretch. And so now this year we've had a lot of changes in our group. One just had a baby. One's just finished. Yeah, and he's really excited. It's his first little guy. I think he's like 6 or 7 months old now. And then one girl is actually just getting ready to graduate school from being a mortician, so we're really proud of her for that.
That's a fitting job.
It was very fitting, for her to go into that. She was, it's funny. She started out to be an accountant, and she quit that. And now she's
That's a little bit of a change, isn't it, from an accountant to a mortician?
Yeah. So I think, and then we've had a couple with some illnesses and family issues. So this year we're just kind of concentrating more on the Boyd House this year than traveling, and hopefully next year everything will get better and we can do some more traveling, because we do have a whole list of other awesome places we want to check out.
And would you ever consider going out of America, maybe to Europe?
We would, if it wouldn't cost $1 bazillion to fly our...
Yeah, I mean, we're the same. Like, there's so many places to investigate in the UK, but it's just getting there and getting time off work and being able to get everything together to do it. It's quite difficult.
Yeah, because you guys got those really cool castles and everything, so I would love to.
They are very, very expensive to investigate.
Oh, I bet, but
still,
it's super cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. So you mentioned that you're going to be trying to focus more on the Boyd House this year. So does that mean that you're going to become like a resident paranormal group there, or are you going to still allow people to come and investigate?
Oh, no, we'll still allow people to come in and investigate. It's just when we are able to get together, that's where we'll just kind of go down. I still go down probably at least a good once a month, because I like to check on the place and make sure everything's going good, and just touch base with the spirits too, because I feel like we created this relationship and I can't just disappear on them.
Yeah,
I think it was like the third paranormal group I had in, and I don't, and I tried to explain to them, because I feel like this is all new. This is all new for them. They don't know this equipment. Nobody's ever talked to them before. Nobody's engaged. So I started like, hey, this is a REM pod. This is what it does. Check it out, and I kind of got them into learning how to do things. For the longest time, nothing was being touched. It was before I bought the house, but I have one of those REM bears. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yeah, the Boo Bears.
Yeah, so I have, we actually have the very first prototype of the Boo Bear, which I like way better. I wish they'd make them again.
Right, okay.
And he... I would bring him there, and it's like, gosh, if there's kids, he always goes off. We call him Wally. That's what we named him. And he's like the island of misfit toys. We always stuff him in dark, creepy places by himself.
Oh, poor bear.
Yeah, but you're a little Wally bear. So there's like one day I was just sitting in the kids' room, and I was like, look, you guys, you just gotta give me something. I gotta know that you're here. If you want people to bring you presents. I'll bring you more presents. People bring you presents. You gotta do something. Just like touch this bear. He's not going to hurt you. And that night he went off for like 2 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I guess they were listening. But I do know the second or third group that came in, they had gotten an EVP like pretty quickly after they got in, you know, and they were getting set up. They got an EVP of a woman say, "Where's Jill?" So it's like, they didn't really understand, I think, what was going on, because I did explain to them other people are going to come and talk to you, so they'd really like it if you talk to them. But I think they're catching on now, because people are getting more and more experiences at the house.
More differing experiences as well, not just the same stuff.
Yeah, different. Like some people hear footsteps, some people experiencing, you know, doors slamming, other people won't. Some people hear, you know, lights are turning on and off. You know, everybody's getting different things, but it's kind of like the same stuff from I hear from people, the footsteps, the doors. Now, somebody said my dryer door kept opening and closing for the washer and dryer one night.
At least we know the spirits like to do their washing, though.
I know. I was like, well, they should have did all the towels while they were there.
Just a bit inconsiderate doing it while there's investigators there.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so everybody, I mean, they've had something, you know. I think we've had a few that come that aren't, I guess I wouldn't say, they're more like the thrill seekers. I guess I would classify them as, where they don't really have equipment and they think it's going to be like how Hollywood is, and they're surprised on how quiet it really is.
Yeah, I think this is the problem. You mentioned at the start of this interview about how TV influenced you into getting into the paranormal and things, and I think that has influenced a lot of people. We've discussed this on previous podcasts, where TV shows like Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures have turned people who haven't really been into the paranormal to go to locations and think that's exactly how it's going to be, when in reality you're sitting in the dark and asking out questions and nothing's happening. Right.
We actually, on a note about that, we did, this was just like a month or so ago, there was a group of teenagers that work with a program that for kids who are learning how to do like video production, kind of want to get into filmmaking. And they're a nonprofit organization. Well, the kids this year wanted to do a documentary on the paranormal, so they contacted us, and the building that they are located in is actually haunted. We're based out of Stillwater, Minnesota, which 90% of the town is haunted.
Wow.
So they had asked if we could come and do an investigation. They could film, they could partake. It was kind of funny, because at first they were kind of stand back and doing the filming, and by the end it's like they had all our equipment and we were filming.
Oh, really?
It was kind of fun to see them, you know, react with the spirit box and things, but they kind of did interviews afterwards, and they were kind of saying, well, you know, nothing really great happened. I know you said there was stuff on the spirit box, and I think we're all skeptics, and I don't think this building's haunted. And if it was like The Conjuring, that's exactly what they said. If it was like The Conjuring, we would believe. We had explained, you know, okay, well, some of the stuff you're not going to get till we go through it later. So then I said, let's touch base after I go through everything. So I went through the spirit box sessions, and they had asked the last name of the person who was there, and they said Staples. Well, that's the name of the building. So that's the owner of the building. So it was a woman, though, so I don't know if it was the wife or maybe just a relative, but it was verifying the owner of the building. So we're getting some clear, and then one of the girls was getting kind of sassy. She's like, hey, why don't you push one of us? And it told her, you know, to blank the off, you know?
Right.
Nobody heard that until I played it back on film footage. And so then, you know, and I had explained that you can't get swear words on the radio.
Yeah.
So once they got all the stuff I sent them, they all changed their minds and go, oh my gosh, I guess it really is haunted. So, because answering their questions perfectly, you know, and so, yeah, I told them, you know, you're not going to hear it right now. So, that was kind of fun. But yeah, the point being is they thought because the building wasn't acting like it was The Conjuring, that it wasn't haunted.
The problem. You mentioned obviously a lot of the activity seems to be quite intelligent. So is there any, do you reckon there's some residual hauntings in there as well? Or
Not unless the footsteps or something would be residual. I guess I haven't, maybe I should ask people to start keeping track of the time.
see if it tallies up.
Yeah, if that tallies up. I've only heard the footsteps one time myself, and that was like really early in the morning, like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I was sleeping downstairs, and a couple of my other team members are sleeping upstairs, and I heard somebody walking around, and I thought, oh gosh, they must be up. And then I talked to them, and they're like, no, we never got up in the middle of the night. You guys came up here and woke us up. So something was walking around up there that night.
Yeah, that's quite creepy. I live in an old cottage in the middle of the English countryside, and we're forever hearing footsteps in our little cottage, and it's quite creepy when you're lying in bed and you hear them. So where can people find you then, Jill, if they want to get in contact, or even if they want to try and book a stay at the house?
You can Facebook, just under Boyd House is one way. You can do private messages, and like I said, check out all events and any evidence people have sent us. Our website is linked up with my paranormal group, so that's stcroixparanormal.com, and that's STCROIX paranormal.com. Or you can just email us directly at boydhouse217@yahoo.
I'll also put all this information down in the description of this podcast as well, so that you're all aware. And when I share this podcast to Facebook and Twitter, I'll also put the information in there as well. Jill, thank you very much for coming on the Paranormal Guys podcast. It's been a thrill speaking to you, and I wish you the best of luck in the future with the Boyd House.
Thank you so much. And if you ever make it to the States, just come on over. We'll have a good time. We'll go do some investigating.
We will definitely do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just as a reminder, you can find information on the Boyd House by visiting facebook.com/Boyd House or looking on stcroixparanormal.com. That's stcroixparanormal.com. If you want to get in contact with the Boyd House, you can do by emailing boydhouse217@yahoo.com. Thanks very much for listening. Bye bye.